So the program that you'll be reading about today is called Operation Ceasefire. Richmond Anti-Violence Outreach Pays Off by Demian Bula from the San Francisco Chronicle. As violence in Richmond increased, 5 teenagers deemed to be candidates for gun violence, either as the shooter or a victim, were invited to sessions Tuesday and Thursday at Richmond's 2 public high schools as a part of Operation Ceasefire. They were not interrogated, but they were told by a team that included not just the police and prosecutors, but also outreach workers and residents, that the violence had to stop. They were told their lives mattered, and they were offered support and services. But the teens were also put on notice. If anyone in their gang or clique took up arms, the group would become the focus of a sustained police crackdown. The carrot and the stick, a mix of reward and punishment, meetings are part of the ceasefire strategy. The idea is to link the community leaders and the service providers with police in identifying and engaging the small sliver of the population responsible for most street violence. The target should be not only shooters, but also talkers who spread the word. Stuart Wakeling, director of the nonprofit California Partnership for Communities, helped Richmond and other cities implement ceasefire. He describes such sessions, known as call-ins, as almost like a public health message about risk by partners who say, "Hey, we respect you, and we don't want you in prison. We want you alive, and at the same time we want the community safe." Forced compromise. While the Richmond ceasefire effort has made a difference, it has also been complicated. Distrust between police and community advocates has built up over decades. As in many cities, officers and advocates held very different views about how to stop crime. The ceasefire model requires police and the community figures to join their approaches. Since these groups made up of cops and pastors and ex-convicts have to work together, at times there have been tension and even shouting matches in Richmond. But the group, building on a common belief that Richmond won't solve its problems through arrests, are still working together after 2 years. They say the effort, while imperfect, has prompted fundamental changes in how Richmond deals with crime. They also see ceasefire as one factor in a citywide drop in violence. Last year, Richmond recorded 18 homicides and 81 gun assaults, the lowest numbers in at least a decade. Last week's killing of 19-year-old Demaria Young in the Iron Triangle neighborhood was the city's 4th killing this year. The last year has been really transformative, said Adam Kugel, who heads the Contra Costa Interfaith Supporting Community Organization. He said the call-ins marked the first time that in many of these young people's lives where they are in a room with law enforcement and are not under investigation. They are told that we will walk alongside them, but the shooting has to stop. Struggles of the ceasefire. Soon after the program came to Richmond, complications arose. While church leaders and outreach workers saw benefits in forging a direct relationship with the police, they also worried that the link might hurt their credibility on the pulpit or in the streets. Perhaps the biggest concern of community advocates was the social services offered at Collins weren't as robust as the police resources dedicated to the effort, that the carrot paled next to the stick. That concern hasn't gone away. The young men who are called in often see the relationship as forced, which still needs improvement. They often feel more threats than incentives. The city's call-ins began in March 2012. They focused on 2 long-warring groups, suspected gang members from North Richmond who were gathered at a church, and rivals from the central part of the city who convened in a room in City Hall. Sending a message. Police Captain Anthony Williams said 32 of 45 people who were targeted showed up, with many ordered to appear as part of probation or parole. As all people involved agree that the first meetings at City Hall in 2012 were rough. Many of the community leaders thought the atmosphere was too intimidating, and when some of the men challenged the ceasefire program, they were shut down. Police spoke to the men and then left, angering some of them who wanted to be heard. The ceasefire team has been told not to expect immediate peace, and within 2 weeks of the call-ins, members of Central Richmond's Deep Sea Gang were firing at their northern rivals. They tested it, Williams said. We were prepared. Pulling the lever. What followed was a 45-day crackdown on the gang, a move known in the ceasefire world as pulling the lever. Suspected members faced waves of probation and parole, searches, and undercover drug busts. Police made 91 arrests and seized 24 guns, while church pastors and others besieged men from North Richmond not to retaliate. In one case, 6 alleged Deep Sea members were indicted, not for a violent act, but for trying to help an associate who was wanted for attempted murder evade the police. Part of the goal of that case was to communicate to the target group, specifically Deep Sea, that not only the shooters but those who stand with the shooters would be prosecuted, said Deputy District Attorney Satish Jalapali, who attended last week's call-in. The message seems to be received, based on the level of activity that followed that. For the rest of 2012, police traced no gun violence to the gang feud. Tom Kensek, an assistant district attorney who oversees homicide and gang prosecutions, said the call-in stripped away some anonymity by letting them know that we know that they're involved. That can do 2 things, he said. It can heighten their wariness and diminish their sense of invincibility. The other thing it can do is give them a little bit of an out. They can say, I can't ride tonight. I'm too hot. My name's on that list. If you get caught with me, you're going to be in trouble too. 9 of the men who had been on the original call-ins were arrested in a crackdown, Williams said. Several others, however, enrolled in employment or other social services programs.